Welcome to Free to Cook. In this episode, we're going to be cooking pulled pork low and slow on the kettle barbecue. When cooked well, pulled pork is tender, juicy, and tasty. It's a fantastic dish for any party because one pork butt can feed a lot of people. This cook is going to take anywhere between 8 to 12 hours, so it's going to be an early start if you want to serve it for lunch. First thing we need to do is set up the barbecue. I'm using the snake method. The snake method gives you a constant heat throughout the cook. There's a detailed video on the channel explaining how to set up the snake method. I'll also put the link in the description. The next thing we need to do is create our rub. You could use any pre-made pork rub, but I'm going to show you a simple rub that's packed full of flavor. In a bowl, add 4 tablespoons of salt and 4 tablespoons of pepper. Then add 4 tablespoons of sweet paprika. I'm using G-Fresh's great range of dried herbs and spices. Then 2 tablespoons of garlic powder and 2 tablespoons of onion powder. Finally, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Thoroughly mix it all together. Now we want to cover this pork butt with the rub. I've got a 2.5 kilogram or a 5.5 pound pork butt with the bone in. Funny enough, this cut of meat doesn't actually come from the rear of the pig, it comes from the shoulder. To help the rub stick, cover the pork butt with some olive oil. Cover the pork with the rub. Make sure to fully coat it. If I was cooking this on the offset smoker, I might trim some of that fat. But because we're cooking it on a kettle barbecue, the heat source is close, so the meat will be safer if you leave it on. Next, add your lit charcoal to the start of the snake. I'm using clean heat charcoal. It burns hot and for a really long time. I'm using a water pan. This will not only help catch the fat, but also add some moisture to the barbecue. Place the pork butt fat side up. For a long cook like this, I like to add the wood as I go along. This will give you a greater control over the flavour of the meat. Cover with the lid. This pork would need to cook for 8 to 12 hours at a temperature of around 275 Fahrenheit or 135 Celsius. One thing I love about getting up early for a cook like this is watching the sunrise. After about 4 or 5 hours, the meat should have started to become tender and formed a nice bark. Lay out some sheets of alfoil before placing the pork butt in the middle. Mop the pork with a blend of half water and half apple cider vinegar. This will add a bit of flavour and also some moisture. Wrap it up tight. I use this as a chance to top up the snake with charcoal. Place the pork back on the barbecue and cook for another 4 to 5 hours. When the meat simply falls apart by touching it, it's finished cooking. Take it off the barbecue and let it rest for at least half an hour to an hour. You can use a pair of tongs or the claws like these my sister gave me for Christmas. Once the pork is largely pulled apart, I like to use 2 forks to really get in there and make sure it's all pulled into strips. There you have it, low and slow barbecued pulled pork. This takes time and patience, but is well worth it. I like to make pulled pork sliders using some of the pulled pork topped with barbecue sauce and coleslaw. I guarantee you, this pulled pork will be a favourite at any party. If you found this recipe helpful, don't forget to share it, subscribe to the channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and if you have any recipe suggestions, leave them in the comments.